The idea for a jewellery exhibition started many, many years ago. I remember our founding chairman, Maurice De Giorgio, who had once talked to me about it and said we should have a jewellery exhibition. In fact, when we started to look at the other jewellery that there was in Malta, we started to select pieces which commenced with prehistoric times and went on till contemporary times. So we're looking at well over 2 millennia of history. We chose the Casino Maltese as the venue for the exhibition for a number of reasons. First of all, it is at the dead centre of Valletta, and this is crucial for an exhibition. You really need to be in a place where people congregate. Other reasons are, for example, because it is a private members club. So although it is a splendid building, very beautiful halls, very large halls, not many people have actually entered into this building. So it was fun to be able to allow people to come in and enjoy the wonderful architecture of this space. We also have to remember that in the past, this was used as the venue for several balls and several big events. So this is actually where this jewellery, the sort of jewellery that we would be displaying in the exhibition, would have been worn in the right context. So this vast ballroom was transformed into a number of different spaces which showcase different themes relating to this jewellery. Over here, for example, I remember we had the amulets and the prehistoric jewellery. So it started with the dawn of civilization, if you like. Then we moved on into an area which was round about here, which was dedicated to historic jewellery which had a connection with the church or which was very old Baroque jewellery, really some wonderful gemmed pieces. Then we had moved on into an area which was styled to look like a 19th century salon. So really very beautiful, very light, and which had a lot of jewellery of the period. This is known as the Princess Room, but you wouldn't have recognized it during the exhibition because there was a seamless transformation of this room to continue with the narrative of the exhibition from the ballroom into this room. And in fact, in this room we had a lot of jewellery which was traditionally worn by the Maltese. We also had a number of portraits, and what was quite something, was quite spectacular I would say, was that we managed to link up portraits with the actual jewellery pieces which were depicted in these portraits. And this resulted from a lot of research and from visiting many private collections. In some cases, the actual jewellery pieces belong to a completely different private collection than the portrait. But for the first time in perhaps even centuries, we were able to bring them together in this display over here. Right here we had actually remounted a jeweller's workshop. We had found it stored away. It was very old. It's a really lucky survival, and luckily it was stored away, not in use of course. We dismantled it and brought it here and put it back together so that we could highlight as well the craft behind all this beautiful jewellery. One thinks of jewellery only in terms of how people wore it, what it made people look like, but in fact there is a much bigger history to it. There is the history of the trade, the art historical dimension to it, the style, and also the commercial value. So we wanted to highlight that there was a lively trade in jewellery making in Malta, and this was a way of doing it. There were a number of depictions of pattern books as well, so showing some designs that jewellery makers would use to create pieces of jewellery. And then there was a section dedicated to filigree. Now, filigree is of extreme importance on the Maltese jewellery history scene, in the sense that in the 19th century, Maltese filigree was famous worldwide. And anybody passing through Malta, travellers, would choose to buy a piece of Maltese filigree as a precious souvenir to take home to their loved ones. The narrative moved on into the modern period, closer to our time. And here we actually had a lovely selection of 20th century jewellery, but we also had a focus on Andrew Grima. Andrew Grima was a very important maker of jewellery, or designer I should say, designer of jewellery, who became extremely famous in mid to late 20th century England. And in fact, the jewellery he came out with was so extremely innovative. It really broke the mold. And he was collected by royalty, he was collected by high society. He was really a big name. He is of Maltese descent. One of the incidents I remember in particular was when we were transporting the jewellery, which had to come to the exhibition at the very last moment. In fact, for months before, while we were putting up the props and starting to design the actual supports for the jewellery, we worked with cutouts of the jewellery so that we wouldn't have to handle the actual valuable pieces. At the very end, we brought in the jewellery to the exhibition. And I remember there was one particular instance when we had to bring a very, very valuable, and valuable even because of its historic and religious connotations, this object from the Medina Cathedral. It was the Riza, the cover of the icon of the Madonna of St. Luke. And this was an icon which was so venerated for hundreds of years. And its cover was studded with pieces of jewellery, which is why we wanted to have it for the exhibition. And at the moment when we were transporting it literally with kid gloves, we were extremely careful and with a lot of veneration ourselves. At that moment I realized this is the first time in over 400 years that this object has moved from Medina. And it was a moment when I felt all the weight on my shoulders. I really don't know how I didn't buckle under that weight. And I think all of us in the team who were working on the exhibition felt this great responsibility right through the organisation of the exhibition, through the handling of the objects. And we only sighed a big sigh of relief when every last object was back at home at its collector. One of the hallmarks of a Patrimonju exhibition is to produce a catalogue. And the catalogue of Patrimonju is generally a hefty volume, which includes all of the objects that were displayed, so fully illustrated in colour. In this case, with the jewellery exhibition, it was an absolute record for us because we had over 500 objects gathered together in this exhibition. They are all illustrated in this catalogue. Apart from that, we invite a number of experts to contribute articles regarding the subject, of course, the subject that is being dealt with in the exhibition, which is jewellery, of course. And this provides a lasting study and a lasting reminder of the exhibition. The exhibition comes down after 3 months, but the catalogue remains on the bookshelves in order for future researchers to be able to see the state of research at the time.